Hey folks, and welcome to CarStarz' 10 Wild Facts About Darrin's Reactor Mach II in the 1964 TV series Bewitched. Fact number 1. The one-of-a-kind custom-built car used in the single Bewitched episode entitled Supercar, which was the 19th episode of Season 3, to portray the car gifted to Darrin, was a custom build by the legendary custom car builder Gene Winfield. It was designed by designer Ben Delphia and commissioned at a cost of $20,000 by Hartford Autorama promoter Joe Kizes. Joe put in the rather vague request to Winfield in late 1963 to, quote, "Build me something nobody's ever seen." Working in his Modesto, California shop at the time, Winfield hand-hammered aluminum over a tubular frame, building it throughout 1964 and 65. After which the car hit the indoor show circuit under the name Autorama Special and wowed crowds at the 1966 Grand National Roadster Show, where Gene finally christened it as the Reactor. The car only picked up the Mach II part of its name from being on Bewitched, as the writers added the extra aviation-inspired title to make it sound faster and more exotic. Gene Winfield's Reactor show car gradually transformed into an icon over the next few years, recognized well beyond American custom car circles. Its significant feature in Bewitched was only the beginning of its global stardom and mainstream media cameos, which we'll get into the details of a bit later on. Images of the low-slung green and gold coupe blasted onto millions of television screens, sparking magazine features and showings from Los Angeles to London. Fact number 2. The Reactor was fitted with a 180 gross horsepower, factory turbocharged 164 flat 6, pulled from a 65 Chevrolet Corvair Corsa, a far cry from the 425 horsepower claimed within the show, of course, but plenty enough power for such a lightweight custom of only around 2,000 pounds. The air-cooled pancake layout was perfect for a show car, since it sits nice and low with no bulky radiator to take up space, and it delivered factory reliability as well. Because the engine's compact form freed up space all around it, Winfield could hide wiring and plumbing neatly beneath polished aluminum panels, giving the engine bay a bright gleam for the futuristic style car. He even angled the dual exhaust tips to exit just behind the front wheels, so crowds gathered at indoor shows felt a sudden burst of sound and heat the moment the turbo flat 6 fired up. Corvair Corsa turbos pegged the flat 6's boost at around 10 psi, outputting decent power and a hefty wave of torque from as little as 3,000 RPM. The engine inhaled through polished velocity stacks that fed the Rochester side draft turbo carb, so throttle response felt almost instant despite the boost. The turbo's shrill whistle, combined with the air-cooled fan's distinctive whir, gave the car a soundtrack somewhere between a sports prototype and a jet-age appliance, exactly the futuristic vibe Winfield wanted spectators to experience. Fact number 3. So, what's under all of that custom bodywork, you ask? Well, the chassis isn't 100% custom, actually, as Gene began with the front half of a 1956 Citroen DS because of its compact self-contained front-wheel drive system. The DS packed its engine, transaxle, steering, inboard disc brakes, and all the hydraulic plumbing ahead of the firewall, leaving nothing bulky to run down the center of the car. That allowed Winfield to drop the hood line significantly and shape the Reactor's tapered belly without worrying about driveshaft tunnels or rear differentials eating up interior space. Just as important was the DS's nifty hydraulics, the high-pressure system that powered its clutch, four-wheel self-leveling suspension, steering assist, and even the semi-automatic gear changes. Winfield wired the factory ride height control to a dashboard toggle so he could squat the Reactor to a 4-inch stance for dramatic unveilings, then, by the mere flip of a switch, could elevate it 9 inches for display or necessity. On set, technicians loved the hydraulics because they made the car come alive on cue. Touch a button, and the whole body rose in a silent, almost eerie glide, perfect for 1960s sci-fi theater appeal. The custom canopy, doors, and forward-tilting hood, however, weren't hydraulic. Winfield set up those with custom electric linear actuators and relays that could be operated via remote control, allowing for the panels to be opened or closed from off-camera for perfect timing. By keeping the complex DS hydraulics focused on suspension and drivetrain duties while isolating the body hardware on their own more simple electric circuits, the Reactor avoided leaks, kept weight down, and ensured every moving panel behaved flawlessly for decades after. Fact number 4. Although not as substantial in use, in late 1967, the reactor returned to the TV spotlight on ABC's Batman, Season 3, Episode 16, The Funny Feline Felonies, and Episode 17, The Jokes on Catwoman, as the Catmobile. Gene Winfield dressed the coupe with temporary bolt-on props, furry ears, and a swishing tail so it could prowl around Gotham. Eartha Kitt slinked into the low-slung machine while stagehands showed off its party tricks via remote behind the scenes. Just 10 weeks later, in early 1968, NBC's Star Trek beamed the reactor onto millions of screens once again in Season 2, Episode 25, Bread and Circuses. The reactor was badged as the Jupiter 8 for this very brief role, appearing in a short newsfeed and in a futuristic magazine ad on a foreign planet. William Shatner also posed for publicity stills beside the open canopy as well as inside the car, while its gold and green paint gleamed under studio lamps with photographers capturing a car that looked every bit as otherworldly as the Enterprise itself. After its short-lived but very memorable 1967-68 television fame, the reactor wasn't done with Hollywood yet. Fact number 5. The reactor made a couple more brief cameos in the quite bizarre 1970 exploitation thriller entitled The Psycho Lover. The reactor lends psychiatrist Dr. Kenneth Alden an air of jet-age menace. Its first appearance comes early, when Alden leaves his home as the camera captures the now all-gold-painted coupe. The canopy tilts skyward, and Alden settles into the driver's seat. The shot lingers just long enough for the audience to take in and recognize the unique car before the story moves on. The second and final glimpse arrives halfway through the film as Alden walks to the car in a parking garage while showing off the remote-controlled opening of the canopy and doors. We also see him driving in the garage briefly, of which we get a nice front shot of the car, and that's all we see of it in this film. Though the screen time totals barely a couple minutes worth, the reactor's cameo has become one of the movie's few lasting talking points. Fans of custom cars hunt down the film just to catch those brief shots, rounding out the car's whirlwind Hollywood journey from Bewitched to Batman to Star Trek, and finally to this obscure film of which the car is definitely the best part of it. Fact number 6. After its burst of television fame, Winfield repainted the reactor a solid, warm orange-gold color, the same paint we saw it wearing in the aforementioned movie cameo, and he then sold it to George Barris's Touring Cars of the Stars collection. From there, it migrated to Bill Harrah's Reno Auto Museum, and after that collection was dispersed in the late 70s, the car wound up in a small museum in North Carolina. For nearly 2 decades, Winfield had no idea what became of his famous creation. A phone call tip in 1995 pointed Gene to that North Carolina building, where he found the reactor pushed into a corner with its once brilliant paint mostly sanded away, body panels showing bare aluminum, tires flat, and the hydraulic system dry. The custom canopy, however, had been carefully wrapped for protection, and all the unique mechanical pieces were still present. Relieved, Winfield struck a deal on the spot and winched the dormant coupe onto an open trailer for the long haul back to his Mojave Desert shop. Over the next 3 years, Gene and a handful of trusted apprentices rewired the car, rebuilt the turbocharged Flat 6, resealed the Citron hydraulic pump, and reapplied the original green-to-gold gradient metal flake paint. The fully revived reactor made its comeback at the 50th Oakland Roadster Show in January 1999, rising and lowering on command just as it had when first built. The futuristic one-off was back under its creator's care and looking better than ever. Fact number 7. In 2016, the reactor made one last mainstream media feature, in a music video of all things, as it rolled back into the spotlight when a 1960s/70s pop culture-inspired band by the name of The Lemon Twigs chose it as the visual centerpiece for their music video entitled As Long as We're Together. Winfield's famous restored coupe was trailered from his Mojave shop to a lonely strip of high desert blacktop outside Lancaster, California, where its gold-to-green transition paint glowed against the endless cobalt sky and sagebrush. As cameras swept around the scene, the car took center stage. The canopy raised up and down a few times throughout, yet the doors were only used manually by hand instead for some reason, all time with the song's pacing. Dust swirling in the desert light covered the metallic flake paint at times, but it was still prominent enough, turning the reactor into a living lens flare that stole attention from everything else in the production. Fact number 8. In 2017, the still quite fresh and well-maintained from its late 90s restoration reactor rolled onto Pebble Beach's famed 18th Fairway lawn as part of the Concours d'Elegance's special American Dream Cars of the 1960s class. an invitation that put a radical West Coast show rod on the same turf as million-dollar coach-built classics. At 90 years old, Gene Winfield personally escorted the car through the dawn-light staging lanes, joking with judges who remembered watching it on the Bewitched show half a century earlier. Crowds packed 3 deep when Gene demonstrated the car's electronic touches. The canopy lifted, the doors slid open, and the hydraulic suspension raised the nose in a smooth glide. Photographers who normally haunt Ferraris sprinted over to catch the moment, and Motor Trend later singled the Reactor out as one of its 8 favorite dream cars on the field. More than a few onlookers admitted they'd come just to verify the TV legend was real and left convinced it looked even more futuristic in person than on film. Although the Reactor didn't snag a podium spot, its mere presence in the concours lineup felt like a victory for the custom car community. Fact number 9. Since Gene Winfield's recent passing on March 4th this year at the age of 97, the Reactor has remained exactly where he wanted it, inside the corrugated steel showroom at Winfield's Rod and Custom compound off Highway 58 in Mojave. Gene's will instructs that the shop stay intact as a living museum, so the coupe sits front and center with its canopy open, kept polished, photographed often, and unmistakably present in the place that gave it new life. The shop still fires up the turbo flat 6 every couple of weeks, cycling the hydraulics to keep everything supple and functional. Visitors who make the trek can usually catch an impromptu demonstration. The canopy still tilts, the doors still glide, and the body can still rise, just as Gene loved to show off so much. The crew treats these moments as part celebration, part maintenance, exactly the balance their mentor practiced on his most valued creations. Fact number 10. Taking a look into the scale model world for the Reactor, unfortunately you won't find much. However, there are a couple options out there, one being fairly easily obtainable, and one you probably just won't find. As for die-cast options, there was only one, as far as I can tell anyway, which is this 1/43rd scale tribute from a brand called Auto Cult that's limited to just 333 numbered pieces. These are nicely detailed for their size and can still be found on the resale market fairly often, such as eBay, and typically sell from around $100 to $200. This is your best bet if you want a scale model of the Reactor, though, as the next option is by far even more rare. And for plastic model kits, although there were no mass releases, there were a handful of 1/24th scale resin kits created by Jim Simpson's Simpson Design in the early 2000s for a short while. However, there were very few of these created, so the chances of finding one of these today are quite slim. By the way, folks, I recently started a new and also film-related and similar format YouTube channel called Mind Litter. If anyone is interested in hearing more about our favorite movies and TV shows beyond just the cars, such as other behind-the-scenes info, filming locations, and actor-related tidbits and such, I will put a link in the description below for those interested in checking it out. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw here. You guys are all great. See you next time.